I'd like to welcome everybody present for this meeting in the Civic Centre and all those observing the meeting on Microsoft Teams. Fire alarm procedure. We don't expect any fire drills tonight, but in the event of an alarm sounding, please quickly make your way out of the building. There are 3 exits from this room which members can use to vacate the premises. Please switch mobile phones onto silent or switch them off and take any calls that you may receive outside the meeting room. Please don't leave any bags unaccompanied and or report any unaccompanied bags. Remember to take any bags with you when you leave the meeting and concluded business. This meeting may be subject to filming or audio recording by others in accordance with the Council's filming protocol. Anyone who remains in the meeting following this announcement will be deemed to have consented to allow their image to be recorded and broadcast. Thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence?
We have apologies from Councillor Bell, Councillor Hammersley and Councillor Metcalfe. Councillor Whitby will act to substitute for Councillor Hammersley.
Apologies. On the floor? No? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Any declarations? No. Move on to item 3. Hopefully this one's okay this time. Minutes of the site visit held on the 18th of December. I'd like a proposer and a seconder for the minutes for the site visit. Just Councillor Moxon, Councillor Answer. Yeah. Could I have a show of hands to accept those? There's 3 members who were present. I think Councillor Clay, you were there. Yeah. That's unanimous. Thank you. Move on to item 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of January. Do I have a proposer and a seconder for those? Councillor Swinscoe. And Councillor Stevenson. Can we confirm they're accurate minutes? Show of hands. Those who were at that meeting, you show. That was unanimous, thank you. We'll move on to item 5, which is plan application reference 2022-0412, full application submitted in accordance with the Town, County, Country Planning, Environment Impact Assessment Regulations 2017, erection of employment floor space, use classes B2, B8, EG2 and EG3, and EG3 with ancillary office accommodation, new access road off the A617, provision of service yards, internal vehicle circulation and parking, service and areas, perimeter fencing, associated draining works, site levelling, landscaping and realignment of existing public right-of-way, land adjacent to the A617 and A6075, Abbott Road, Mansfield. I invite Karen to give the report, please.
Thank you. Proposal relates to an area of approximately 12 hectares of farmland at Pennamont Farm on an allocated employment site under Local Plan Policy E2C. Pennamont Farm has a long-standing planning history, permitting employment development dating from the late 1990s, with a detailed employment scheme for B1 and B2 approved in 2007. In 2012, outline consent was granted for employment uses B1, B2 and B8. In 2007, for a larger scale of employment development of up to 39,216 square metres floor space, together with residential housing at Pennant Farm. Phase 1 of the residential development has been built out, and in November 2023, committee approved a replacement outline consent for the remaining residential development area. The employment land has not been included in the outline application, but is subject to this separate planning application for determination tonight. The current application differs from the outline consent in that the proposed uses have been revised to update the B1 light industrial office potential and replace it with the new E-class, which is research and development, and the old light industrial category. The amount of floor space is also reduced from 39,216 to 36,384 square metres. The development has been classified as environmental impact development, and detailed assessments were undertaken in respect of cumulative impacts, landscape and visual impacts, and archaeology. The buildings range in size from a larger B8 unit, 13,886 square metres, with an overall height of 18.1 metres, located on lower lying ground adjacent to the A617, whilst the smallest unit, which is capable of being subdivided into smaller units, are between 3,008 square metres and 3,217 square metres, with an overall height of 12.65 metres. The layout is arranged to position buildings close to the A617, either side of the site entrance, and on the southern eastern side, Abbott Road, with one unit to the west of Pennant Cottage and units 2 and 3 to the east. Local objectors have raised objections to the height of the buildings in the context of the residential nature of the locality. No vehicular access is proposed to Abbott Road, and an existing right-of-way is repositioned to extend through the development across the A617 to continue its route into open countryside beyond. Within the site, the closest unit to Abbott Road lies 28 metres from the site boundary, and areas of landscaping are proposed between the units and the Abbott Road frontage. Additionally, a landscaping buffer tree-planted belt is shown extending on the northern site boundary to create a buffer with the Pennant Farm residential development. The site has significant levels changes across the land and a number of hedge road field boundaries. The proposal incorporates ground level changes but takes account of natural ground levels to enable the largest and tallest building, Unit 1, to be set down on the lowest level ground to reduce its visual impact, both from Abbott Road and along the views beyond the site. Similarly, Unit 4 is set below the adjacent ground level of Pennant Cottage. The buildings are shown as clad sheds and designed to enable a range of uses, including B2, B8 warehousing and storage, and the E-class light industrial. It is anticipated that a range of uses will come forward on the site. It is anticipated that the development could bring forward local employment, and to this end, a local labour agreement has been agreed to be incorporated into the Section 106 agreement to secure jobs to be offered to people within the district. Landscape and visual impact assessment was undertaken to support the application and was reviewed by landscape architects on behalf of the council. It was found that whilst there would be an impact on the landscape from the change from open farmland to built development, this could be mitigated through revisions to the scheme, including altering roof heights and screening through enhanced planting, in particular through increased tree planting. These amendments are the ones that are in front of you. The scheme has been amended to reduce the visibility of the roofs, and further information provided on levels with section drawings submitted to show how buildings would sit visually in their settings. The use of trees has been increased, with larger trees proposed in the buffer zones and around the edges of the boundaries and around the yard areas. Increased tree planting is proposed in the landscaped area between the units and Abbott Road, and the hedgerow to Abbott Road is to be replaced. Further measures can be used to break up the visual massing of the buildings through the use of cladding colours, and this is recommended conditions. Whilst the buildings are taller than residential dwellings, they've been designed to minimise their height, including by reducing and hipping the roofs. It's a relevant consideration that the site has a range of levels, and the layout's designed to locate the largest building on the lowest lying ground, Unit 1, and to screen robustly with planting, and the building to the front of it, Unit 2. Unit 4, adjoining Pennant Cottage, is located on low-lying ground, and the site offers opportunities to utilise these variations to reduce the visual heights when viewed from Abbott Road in particular. In respect of highways impacts, which is of concern to objectors, detailed consideration has been given to the traffic information submitted and the predicted traffic flows. And following a further appraisal by Nottinghamshire Highway Authority, following the deferral in December, the Highway Authority have advised that they remain of the opinion that the highway network, subject to some off-site works, can accommodate the proposed development. This takes account of the assessment of the impacts from the previous outline consent for Pennant Farm, Leslie Farm, and the approved replacement outline consent agreed by Planning Committee in November. It is concluded that the development, which is for a smaller total commercial floor space than previously approved under the outline consent, is supportable by the Highway Authority. A number of off-site works are required to be undertaken with the development, focused on active travel, requiring a dedicated cycleway and footway to be provided between the Pennant Cottage access point and the proposed junction into the Pennant Farm residential development. This involves removing the existing field hedge along Abbott Road that will be replaced with a new hedge behind the footway and cycleway. Included within the cycleway and footway improvements to Abbott Road is the construction of a new sparrow-type crossing to enable safe crossing of Abbott Road. Other improvements incorporate upgrading to bus stops and the provision of new bus stops. These works will be secured by condition, and a financial contribution of £231,000 is required as a bus service contribution in addition. To encourage cycling and walking to the site, the existing public right-of-way through the site is retained, but proposed reposition and upgrading to enable cycling and walking whilst retaining its status as a right-of-way for recreational use. The path will continue to extend and cross over the access into the site onto the A617, and an upgraded refuge, which includes an improved controlled crossing point, is incorporated. This will also impact with the required cycleway improvements along the section of the A617, where a 3-metre wide cycleway and improved 2-metre wide footway for a length of 100 metres in either direction of the site access will be provided. A junction also is proposed with 4-metre wide approach lanes. Service lay-by is shown opposite the site entrance for highway service vehicles. Within the site, the proposed parking area is to minimum parking standards with cycle parking and EV charging points. The provision of active travel incentivises employees to move to sustainable transport measures, and this will have a knock-on effect. It's expected to have a knock-on effect of reducing demand for car parking space. And this is reinforced by the use of the local labour agreement, which will draw local employees rather than employees coming from outside the area. Included within that will be a requirement for travel plan and 3 monthly bus passes for each employee to encourage sustainable travel measures. The local plan allocation included a requirement for a link between this site and the residential parcels on Pennant Farm. An acoustic fence is necessary along the buffer area between the site and the future residential area. creating an opening here would potentially undermine the acoustic fence and its ability to stop noise percolating through. As a consequence, although required under the although shown as a criteria to be met under the local plan allocation, the conclusion is that this is better dealt with by routing cyclists through to the Abbott Road, along the upgraded footway and cycleway, through to the access point with the Pennant Farm residential commercial. This also takes into account of the fact that there are differences in ground levels between the two sites. The alternative arrangement, whilst a longer route, it provides a secure and overlooked route which is considered a viable alternative. In terms of residential amenity and noise in the vicinity of the site, acoustic fences around potential noise generating parts and the acoustic report and environmental health colleagues are satisfied the positions of use of acoustic fences will mitigate local impacts. These are proposed planted alongside to reduce the visual impact, particularly when viewed from long views across the Abbott Road. Pennant Cottage is wrapped around by the development, and consideration has been given to the impact from the development on the property. The cottage is on higher ground, and there is a significant drop in land levels for the proposed closest building unit 4, and a separation distance of 37 metres at an oblique angle. The property is screened by its own established planting, and whilst there will be a degree of impact from loss of outlook, limited overshadowing to the rear garden, it is not assessed there will be an impact of loss of light and overshadowing to rooms in the rear of the dwelling. Section drawings submitted in August 2023 confirm the relationship between Unit 4 and Pennant Cottage and the relative levels between the dwelling and Unit 4. These address any concerns over breaches to the 45-degree sunlight and daylight code. In relation to biodiversity and trees, the proposal replaces some of the hedges and trees proposed removed. The hedgerow to Abbott Road is replaced. An area of shrub planting is proposed where a mains water pipe crosses the site in the western part of the site. Although a landscaping scheme has been submitted in detail, it's considered that further consideration is needed to be given to planting schedules and timing of the planting. Conditions therefore recommended in this respect. The application predates the BNG regulations, and there is inevitably a loss of biodiversity from the loss of farmland. There is, however, an assessed net gain of 0.88% habitat units and 39.02% increase in hedgerow units. The ecologist has advised this as acceptable as it provides an enhancement and therefore accords with policy NE2. Consideration also has to be given to the site's status as an allocated employment site. Conditions are proposed in this respect alongside Skylark breeding ground replacement land. Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust are seeking to pool contributions in the locality and therefore an obligation of £7,816.15 is proposed in relation to a contribution to providing alternative land. The development is of a size which triggers planning obligations and contributions are sought for bus service provision, farmland mitigation, travel plan monitoring and travel information packs, including free bus passes for 3 months and maintenance of landscaping ecology for a 30-year period. Following the site visit and deferral in December to obtain additional information on the highway impacts on Plesley from additional traffic and environmental health on noise and air pollution, in particular on Plesley, the committee report contains the full responses from Nottinghamshire County Highways and Mansfield Environmental Health Officers, together with additional information from the applicants in this respect. The conclusion from both consultees is that they remain of the position that the original assessments of the submission details are acceptable and there are no new issues or objections raised under these criteria raised in December. An update statement has also been issued today to members as further objections and queries have been received. Due to the length of the submissions, it's considered in this instance, rather than a verbal update, it would be helpful to members to have the update in a written format, which you've all been provided with. Correspondence has been received from the Highway Authority and the applicant's transport consultants on the latest objection letter received. The Highway Authority conclude that overall it has nothing further to add to the comments that have been previously submitted on the 30th of the 1st. Environmental health officers have also advised that they have no further comments to add. The recommendation remains to approve the application subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement and the recommended conditions set out in the committee report.
Okay, for the report, Carol. We've got several speakers to invite to the podium. We'll start with Pamela Simpson. You've got 4 minutes, Pamela, when you get there.
My address is based on information to hand and published as of the 12 o'clock midday Friday, the 9th of February. 19 years I have lived on Kingfisher Estate near the proposed site. I am a very, very worried objector. Build-up of traffic in the area has increased over the last few years and is very audible from my garden. There has been a lot of traffic accidents in the area, including 2 going through fences on back gardens on Water Lane. Water Lane has become a cut through from A617 to A6075 with lorries, buses, etc. and will get worse with this development. It's a narrow lane, not a main road or a motorway. The developer got permission to build 14 years ago but chose not to. Why not? If they were built in 2010, we wouldn't be discussing this today, as the original design was about business units that would fit into the area, not units that are so tall, blocking out daylight for residents, light shining through the windows at night, noise due to 24/7 operations. The effect on residents' mental health will weigh heavily. The area has changed since 2010. More houses, cars, HGVs, population growth. What was considered relevant in 2010 isn't appropriate now. The application in 2010 is a material consideration. The planning officer suggests can't be argued. That ignores all other material considerations, especially around transport noise pollution. The configuration of this proposal is completely different to the 2010 application and must be recognised as such. The National Planning Policy Framework states in paragraph 9, the development proposed is so substantial and its cumulative effect, it will be so significant that to grant permission would undermine the planning process. NCC Highway stated in September 2023, unfortunately, HA doesn't accept all the findings summary of the transport assessment dated 15th of June 2022. What's changed since then? Revised reports received from the developers consultants in January, Highway hasn't offered any written publicly available comments that would change their position. Pennant Farm, Pleasant Hill, will add 1,550 houses, industrial units, hotel, retail, gym, care home, a petrol station. With this development, more strain will be put on the area. Myself and residents on Kingfisher Estate are anxious about more HGVs, buses, cars, white vans using Water Lane between Kingfisher and Avalon Estates as a rat run. Questions occur over the change in data over HGVs. How all of a sudden they appear to be going to junction 28 instead of junction 29, which I consider a misnomer. If this goes ahead and problems residents have raised ignored by the planners, residents will seek answers and responsibility lies with you as the decision makers. Consequence of approving this development will have an impact for years to come. The planners have said the 2010 application was approved and can't be declined. That argument doesn't wash. How can something approved 14 years ago in a different format be considered today, given the changes to the type of development? The road infrastructure can't cope, no references being made, reference to Ashfield and Bolsover, both with concerns. A viability study would be sensible. We hope common sense prevails and something that could have been built before and wasn't is rejected, because in 2024 circumstances like the area have changed. On behalf of residents from Rufford, Pleasant Hill and Pennant wards and residents near the site in Ashfield, I ask you, do the right thing, refuse permission. Buildings of this magnitude belong in motorways, not in a residential area.
Thank you, Pamela. Do members have any questions of the speaker? No, thank you. Just as well. Going right to Andrew Miles to the podium, please. Again, Andrew, when you're ready, you've got 4 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, councillors, officers. Are you as confused as I am? Having worked with data all my life, it's a bit like knitting fog. Where to start? I trust you've all received and read my submission in response to the consultation, detailing differences between the latest technical notes and previous submissions. I don't have time in 4 minutes to go through the detail, but to summarise, the total vehicle movements are lower. HGVs generated from the site have fallen. HGVs through Plesley have fallen. HGV movements have changed in favour of HGVs travelling south. Different growth factors have been applied to the transport data. The highways approval is centred on vehicle movements being lower than previously consented in the 2010 application. That is true, but it isn't a like-for-like comparison and doesn't reflect that nearly half the additional vehicles are HGVs. The extra 473 vehicles through Plesley aren't the main problem. It's the fact that 41% of those will be HGVs. The 2010 configuration was completely different and comprised of small units and officers generated only minimal HGV traffic. When the 2010 application was approved, the Plesley bypass was still live. It was never intended that any traffic from this development would go through Plesley. The baseline volumes for this application are 3,200 vehicles a day, higher than the same time frame for the 2010 application. 5% or 1 in 5 of the vehicles through Plesley will be a HGV. HGVs only make up 1.3% of all vehicles in the UK. They account for 19% of total emissions. By 2033, it's predicted that 28,000 vehicles a day will be travelling through Plesley, including 1,400 HGVs. That's one HGV every minute of the day. This is a 30-mile-an-hour single carriageway route through a predominantly residential area stretching for 7 miles to the M1. The air quality data is equally confusing. For starters, it's based on 2020, which was the year of COVID. Isn't there anything more up to date? The report quotes nitrogen dioxide levels of 33 and 36 micrograms per cubic metre against government targets of 40. How can pollution levels at 90% of target be classed as well below unacceptable? The air quality issues are on Plesley Hill. The BWB report relies on data from receptors that aren't even located on Plesley Hill. Plesley Hill has the worst pollution levels in the district. This is acknowledged in the 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23 annual air quality surveys. In 2024, the problem seems to have gone away. Where is the evidence to support that? We're not subjecting to the principle of this development. That was established back in 2002. We didn't object to the 2010 application. Why was that never progressed? The configuration of this application is totally inappropriate for a residential location. Unit 1 is 18 metres high. The Amazon building in Sutton is only 2 metres higher. Developments of this kind are reserved for major highway intersections or specialised industrial parks, not residential areas. We should be promoting high quality, high value employment and not building warehouses with minimum wage labour. This application demonstrates a lack of ambition. In closing, I would make one final procedural point. At the last meeting, the head of planning advised members they couldn't vote against this proposal because the council couldn't afford to defend an appeal. Of course, it doesn't need me to remind members that decisions are made on their planning merits without regard to any financial gain or loss, which the council would potentially incur if the development is prohibited.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Do members have any questions of the speaker? Councillor Answer.
Yeah, to be honest, there are numerous differences. The overall volumes from the site are about 552 vehicles less than the original document. The latest report said that there was be 473 or 476 two-way journeys through Plesley. In the previous report, that was 505. The biggest difference is the phasing of the HGVs coming away from the site. Originally, it was something like, it was 48-52 in favour of the south. Now they've moved more to go south and reduce the percentage going north through Plesley to 43% from 48 before. So it's reducing the numbers. It's reduced the overall numbers, and it's reduced. The overall numbers are reduced, and the percentage going through Plesley is reduced. The total number of HGVs generated from the site originally was 662. Now it's 513. The HGVs going through Plesley was 249. Now it's 197. But there are a number of. I couldn't find any data that was above the data that they presented in 2022. So. Perhaps you can elaborate for me. Yeah, the case made by Highways is predominantly that the trips from this site is because it's lower than the previously consented application, it's acceptable. That doesn't take any account of mix. The previous application was nothing like this one. It was small industrial units. It was offices. I can't remember the number of HGVs. I think it was either 24 or 27. This is something like 515. It's so much bigger. It's so much different to the original application. I just fail to understand how the consented application can be taken into account. Yes, the total number of vehicles is less, but the number of HGVs is so much greater. And these HGVs are going through a residential area. They're going through a 30-mile-an-hour residential area that's not built to take that volume of traffic. Thank you. One more, Chairman. Yeah. Obviously, it's confusing, I'm sure, to many members of the committee and to me, but in respect of the 2010 application, I mean, I can remember the application coming forward and whatever, you said there wasn't much local opposition, which in my recollection at that time, that's clearly not the case in this one. What is your view of the main reasons for this? There was the original 1998 application. We fought it tooth and claw. It was a bombshell to us, and we ended up taking that to judicial review in 2002 and lost. So the principle of the development is established. We're not going to go back and really challenge the principle that ship sailed many years ago. But the 2010 application was palatable. It was small units for local people and local jobs, high quality jobs. There was something, and I found a comment in the 2016 consultation paper for the local plan. It said about the MAR. It said the MAR would focus on significant new growth with a clustering of new residential and employment opportunities on the edge of town, providing high quality, well paid jobs within innovative knowledge based sectors. This is not doing that. This is that 2010 development would have delivered that. It would have delivered knowledge-based, high-value jobs. But engineering firms or manufacturing firms aren't going to move into 14-metre high buildings. It doesn't allow that. These are boxes. These are sheds. These are sheds for a distribution company that it bears no relation to the 2010 application, and it generates. Sorry, the previous application generated something like 24 or 27. I can't remember the number of HGVs. It wasn't many. This application, if you take the latest figures, there's 515 HGV movements per day, 24/7. The previous application, in the 2010 application, never mentioned 24/7 working. It's not. It's chalk and cheese. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Questions? Councillor Tempest Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Mills. In this document, though, I think it's about 5 pages long, we've got one thing where it's talking about some number of pass-bys of HGVs, I presume, per hour in the daytime, assumed number of occupied bays per hour during the daytime, and then the same for night time. But it seems in the night time it's recorded as per 15 minutes rather than per hour. Can you just explain that for us, please?
Yeah, that's in that was the data that was provided by the transport consultant for the noise survey. I would say before the noise survey, the 41 vehicles movements per hour is between 7 and 11 p.m. I think, and the 36 movements per hour is between 11 p.m. at night and 7 o'clock in the morning. So that's the movements on this site. That's kind of there's houses up to this site. The acoustic fence we talk about is a 4 metre high acoustic fence. It's the people are going to buy houses with a 4 metre high acoustic fence at the bottom of the garden. So it's like 41 passes of HGV per hour during the day, 36 during the night. They were the figures provided by the transport consultant to the in respect of the noise survey. They were used to calculate the noise levels from the site.
Councillor Tempest Mitchell.
Thanks. So just to clarify, but I think I've got it right. 36 lorries per hour between 11 o'clock at night and 7 in the morning per hour.
Movements. It might be the same lorry moving more than once. It passes by. So movements, HGV movements. It could be in and out.
Okay.
Yep.
But it's 2.
As I understand, that's what passes by me, and the transport consultant might have a different interpretation, but that's my interpretation of what a passerby means.
So in total, that's 288 lorries pass-bys, and then there's another bit it's a bit dark on my thing, but basically it's occupied bays per 15 minutes, and I look at it as 4. So
this site, if you take the latest data, this site will generate 515 HGV movements per 24 hours every day of the year on average. So some days it won't be as many of that at weekends, obviously, but in the week it'll be more than that. And this site will operate 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So before on the previous set of data, it generated 662 HGV movements per day. So if we take the lower figure at 515, it's still a
Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Wiles. Next speaker, Chris Creighton. Chris, you've got 4 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, councillors, officers, members of the public. I spoke at this committee in December and listened very carefully to the debate and the questions raised by the proposal. As requested by committee, we submitted further technical notes on traffic, air quality and noise, and these are appended to the committee report, have been reviewed by the independent statutory consultees who have no objections. I'm here to answer any further questions you have. I've also got my colleague Chris Holloway, who's our transport consultant, who can hopefully clear up some of the confusion around the traffic numbers. Obviously, the proposal before you is to approve the application as recommended by officers. The Mansfield and Ashfield regeneration route was opened some 20 years ago to help regenerate the local economy by creating new sites for economic and housing growth, including this site, which is allocated in the local plan for job creation. As you all know, Mansfield has seen significant housing growth in recent years, but only 11% of the land allocated in the plan for employment use has been delivered. There's a need for Mansfield to create more job opportunities. These proposals represent a £50 million investment in Mansfield and have the potential to create over 500 jobs, as well as numerous opportunities for apprenticeships and training during construction. This must be one of the largest single job creation projects in the district for a long time and will help Mansfield deliver its economic strategy of attracting inward investment and creating more job opportunities for local people. We know there is strong interest in this site from potential occupiers. There are as many as 55 businesses actively looking for new large-scale floor space in Mansfield. 13 of these are existing Mansfield businesses looking to expand into larger, more efficient premises. The other 42 are entirely new businesses looking to move into the area. These businesses range from manufacturers, engineers, and logistics, all sectors still growing and taking on new staff despite the economic challenges we're all facing. This proposal has been designed to attract these occupiers with modern, efficient space and buildings with a range of heights. Some are lower than others. They're all in an attractive landscape setting with easy access to the highway network, but still closely connected to a local workforce via upgraded public transport and footpath cycleway improvements. We've been discussing with the officers for almost 2 years the design and layout of this development so it can attract occupiers and create jobs, but also be a good neighbour to the surrounding local area. We've been rightly challenged by local residents, officers, consultees, and the council's external independent advisors, all of which informed a detailed and extensive environmental impact assessment and master planning exercise. From the very start, we only ever proposed a vehicular access from the Mar and no vehicular access from Abbott Road. In terms of drainage, for those of you who came on the site visit, we saw how rainfall will be held in underground tanks within the site before draining into the existing drainage ponds and water lane. This will reduce the risk of flooding in the local area. The master planning exercise led to significant changes, repositioning some of the units, reducing their size and height, creating a much wider zone of new development along Abbott Road. 30% of the total site will be green space, and this area will be used to improve the biodiversity of the land that is currently intensively farmed. Careful consideration has also been given to using appropriate colours that will help to blend the development into long-distance views. The proposal is carefully thought about how to encourage employees to cycle, walk, or use public transport,
30 seconds.
including new footways, cycleways, new and improved bus stops, and a potential enhancement to the existing number 6 bus service to create a loop from the town centre to Abbott Road. In summary, the proposal on the allocated site has been recommended for approval. There are no outstanding objections from any of the independent consultees. If approved at committee tonight, my clients are ready to make an immediate start on site, so the first units could be ready for occupation in 2025, and Mansfield can attract new jobs that will benefit the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Do members have any questions of the speaker? Councillor Manson.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Craven, just we've heard from Mr. Mills previously, and that there wasn't much local opposition in 2010 for the application. Why was this application never progressed, and how did the application evolve to what it is now?
From what I know about the application in 2010, it was proposed at an outline stage, which was the principle of the development. There was never a detailed scheme that costed up exactly what it would look like and what sort of businesses would go there. What this scheme is doing, it's responding to the market. So we know there's 55 businesses looking to come to Mansfield, and this is the type of development they're looking for.
I just ask members of the public to stay quiet. To shout out and speak. Just give you that as a rule. Yeah, councillor Anderson.
Well, it's evolved in response to how the market has changed. So in 2010, we had a different economy, different business demands. We're now in 2024. And what we know is if we build a scheme like the one we proposed, we'll find people to occupy. Schemes don't happen generally for commercial reasons. So if there's no one wanting to occupy the space, then developers won't build it. What we know from this scheme is we've got people who are actively looking for this type of development in this floor space. And I think it's important to look at that scheme, and you've got to look at it. There's a mix of unit sizes there, 6 units. They're different heights, so we've dropped the heights close to Abbott Road. Those heights are 13 to 14 metres, unit 2 is 11 metres. We're looking to attract a range of businesses. So we've got people like manufacturers interested, we've got engineering companies, there's a joining firm in Mansfield who's interested. There's a firm in High Wycombe who'd like to move up to Mansfield to open a factory to manufacture fastenings, metal fastenings. So there would be a mix of occupiers in that development.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of the speaker? Councillor Tempest Mitchell.
So thank you. Just going back to your last answer, actually, I think you're basically saying that the market's changing and you're responding to the market. So I think that what that says is you've built something that's bigger than was originally planned because the market's going up.
Well, I think if you compare it with the original scheme, it's actually less floor space. So I think we've come down by about 10%. So the consensus scheme, I think, was 39,000 square metres, and we're about 36 in this. So the actual floor space has come down. But what businesses are looking for are these larger scale units so they can operate more efficiently from them.
So I think you've answered my question slightly, partly. What I was more getting at, it's pretty obvious that we don't need, that you do need the smaller units as well, but you're going with the market and building something that's quite large, unit number 1. So that tells me that the market in terms of distribution is going up, which would mean more lorries every year, as has probably happened over the last 25 years, other than COVID, of course, and will continue to go up, i.e. more HGVs.
Well, yeah, unit 1 is designed to attract a logistics business here, which would have HGVs. By creating these units on this site, you're potentially freeing up smaller units elsewhere in the district. So businesses looking to expand, move into this, will free up older premises. So that need for smaller units can be met elsewhere in Mansfield.
Any other questions? Councillor Tempest Mitchell.
Yeah, with all due respect, I don't really care about what else is being freed up elsewhere. We're talking about that large unit number 1. I think what you're saying is going with the market. The number of HGVs is going to continue going up and up and up, as the market has over the past 20, 25 years, other than COVID. So in terms of the number of HGVs looking forward, we probably can't really tell how the market's going to go, other than up. And you've gone with the market, that's why you're building something that's larger, so you're expecting it to go up.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the question is. I mean, I can make an observation. Yes, it's a sector that's growing, and yes, there are more logistics businesses, we're ordering more things online. You've got manufacturing businesses need logistics as well to get their stuff moved around the country. Will it keep going forever and ever? Probably not. At some point, the market will change, but I think if you think about how any of us shop online, how businesses have to move things around the country, yes, you can't get away from the fact that we need HGVs moving around the highway network, and that's how modern businesses operate.
Thank Councillor Swanscott.
So what can you just confirm that what you're saying actually then is because there's a greater need for businesses, because the way the market's changing, there will inevitably be a lot more HGVs because of the site that is proposed, especially for Unit 1.
I think when you say a lot more than what,
There will be significantly more than at the moment. Or are you saying it's still going to be the same?
I've got my highways colleague and get into all the numbers, but yes, this development will generate HGV traffic, and we've never shied away from that. And that's why we produce transport assessments that look at what the impacts would be when we model the different traffic flows. So, I mean, yes, in short, yes, it will generate HGV movements, but I think that's to be expected from an employment development.
Yeah, it was just that you did say it had changed quite a lot, and people are wanting to move into Unit 1, wanting that larger warehouse space. So to me, that means a significant amount of HGVs that will be coming through the villages. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, I didn't hear a question there, but yeah, I mean, yes, it will generate HGVs. I think if you think back to the old scheme, I think there are offices in there. Offices also generate a lot of traffic at different times. So generally at rush hour, you get lots of traffic movements from offices. As we all know, the office market has changed radically since COVID. There's just not the demand for offices there used to be.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. There's been an accusation that these warehouses or buildings going to attract a lot of low quality, perhaps minimum wage type jobs. Unit 1, you've mentioned specifically envisions being logistics, and I would imagine, given what you've said in regards to that predominantly would be the type of job that would be attracted there. Given the other buildings you mentioned are different sizes, can you just paint a picture of what you envisage those warehouses being used for? I know you mentioned manufacturing. Can you give some examples of companies perhaps that you would envisage and how those other warehouses could be used, please?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, so Unit 1, logistics. Logistics generates all types of jobs. You've got people driving HGVs, you've got people working in the building. It's of a size that would have an office function, so there'd be people in there running HR, management. So it's not just people filling orders. Because there's a shortage of those sorts of workers, their wages have gone up significantly. The other units in the development will attract local industrial businesses. We've got engineering firms interested. I mentioned the joining firm in Mansfield who are looking to use it to store and manufacture joining products on the site. We've got this manufacturer from High Wycombe who'd like to operate out of Mansfield. I work on Markham Vale for HBD on the M1. You've probably driven past it many times. If you go in there's some really interesting businesses. And they all look like warehouses, but in there you've got some of the building, the mobile parts for Cairo. There's a medical products company that's making sterile dressings. There's all kinds of things. So, but they make shoe polish at Markham Vale. So, you know, these buildings, what businesses want is modern, efficient floor space, and that's what we're proposing.
Any other questions on the speaker? No, thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. I invite Chris Holloway, I believe has got more info on the transport situation. Okay. Again, you've got 4 minutes when you're ready, Chris.
Thank you, Chair, councillors, officers and members of the public. I'm Chris Holloway, Transport and Highways Consultant for the application, and I've been involved with the Penman Farm site for close to 10 years. As my colleague highlighted, this employment development is the last piece of the jigsaw of development along Mar, which was specifically brought forward in order to help deliver this site. The site benefits from an allocation in the local plan for employment development and has had planning permission previously. As an existing allocation, previously with an extant planning permission, this means that all the developments permitted within the local area in the last 10 years have all included the Penman Farm employment development as part of any cumulative assessments that have been undertaken. The highway impact assessment work that was completed and submitted as part of the application reviewed the changes between the previous planning consent and the current application. This ultimately identified an overall reduction in traffic generation. The traffic impact of the current development proposals was then assessed, and this confirmed that all the previously identified highway mitigation improvements will remain fit for purpose. The Highway Authority have accepted this methodology and resulting conclusions that the previously identified improvements remain fit for purpose and will be implemented by the developers. This includes the previously agreed traffic signal improvement scheme at the A617 Water Lane junction. The development proposal also delivers significant improvements to the existing pedestrian and cycle infrastructure. This includes new improved footway cycleways along the site frontage to both Abbott Road and the A617 and a pedestrian cycle connection through the site, connecting Abbott Road to the existing footway cycleway on the eastern side of the A617. New controlled crossings of the site access on the 617 will also be provided. The footway cycle along Abbott Road will complete the provision along the western side of Abbott Road and providing continuous link along the entire length. The new east-west connection will also complement the existing Pennant Lane, which is a cycle lane between through the residential development as well. From my experience in dealing with Active Travel England, as part of other applications, including a pilot scheme and training sessions, this has identified that their priority objective is connecting people and places. Pedestrian cycle infrastructure proposed as part of the development will clearly contribute to the active travel objectives and the promotion of walking and cycling, not just for those working at this site, but residents in the local area as well. Vehicular access to the proposed development site is being taken from the A617 via a new traffic signal control junction. This means the majority of traffic will use the primary highway network to access the site, and there will be minimal traffic increases on Abbott Road. Traffic increases on Abbott Road will be limited to employees accessing the development, although with the pedestrian, cycle and public transport connectivity of the site to the local community, this should be a lower number of vehicle trips. Approximately 1,200 vehicles currently use MAR during the highway network peak periods. Previously constrained employment development on the Pennant Farm site would have generated nearly 800 trips in the peak hour, whereas the proposed development before you is forecast to generate 200 trips in the peak hour, which is a 75% reduction in the overall forecast traffic generation. Following this thorough committee in December, we extracted the submitted traffic data from the Pennant Farm planning application and other already consented planning applications to quantify the traffic flows through Pleasley. The data was summarised and submitted in a technical note, which has been reviewed by the Highway Authority, and they've agreed with those conclusions that there's a minimal increase in traffic flows. It's probably worthwhile just clarifying that based on the information and discussions that have been mentioned today, the difference between the numbers is to do with something called PCUs, which I can carry on with that, or you can ask questions anyway, I'm assuming.
Councillor Swansky, do you like to ask a question?
Could you clarify PCUs, please?
Yeah, of course you can. So PCU stands for passenger car units, and they are basically a function that are necessary for where an assessment is focused on highway capacity. So the purpose of the PCU is to basically take account of HGVs in capacity modelling software, because obviously an HGV is much longer than a car. So you factor up your HGVs, so they're called OGV2s or other goods vehicles 2s, which is your longer articulated lorries. So in all the traffic flow calculations that are in the transport assessment, all the HGVs are factored by 2.3 to account for, so they basically are used in capacity modelling. That's the function of that process that has been involved. I've discussed that with a county highway and they've agreed with that approach. That's why those numbers are slightly higher than in the technical note that was submitted in January. The reason being is because the clarification that was requested in the December committee was all about vehicle movements through Beasley. So therefore, I used the vehicle movements rather than the actual highway capacity calculations. So I quantified that, which is why there is a difference between the numbers.
Further questions? Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, Chairman. So anyway, you've heard from Mr Mills the difference between the latest technical notes and the original. Do you accept the points of difference? And if so, what is the reason for the changes?
So the differences that he's quoted are correct in terms of the numbers, and the reason for the difference is that the transport assessment, as I've said, was based on highway capacity as being the primary piece that was being assessed as part of that piece of work. Therefore, everything was quoted in PCUs, which it does say in the appendices of the document, whereas the technical note was all about the actual pure vehicle numbers, and therefore we've used the pure vehicle numbers rather than factoring the HGVs by 2.3.
Good.
Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you. I think what some of the councillors were trying to articulate in the previous questions to, sorry, I forget the gentleman's name, was the trips per hour. So average trips per hour currently looks to me like it's going to be 39.3. Given the increase in businesses using HGV traffic, I think the question that was trying to be asked was, do you expect a consistent rise in the number of HGVs getting used on the site? So it's just noting this paperwork here, I think by 2028 we've got 1399. That's up from 221064. So do you envisage that there would be more demand as the years go on, or not?
So HGV generated by this site are likely to be fairly consistent with the assessment work that we have submitted, because the units that are there can only generate so many HGV movements in terms of how they're used and all those sorts of things. And equally, from dealing with logistic operators, they are looking to maximise the efficiency of HGVs. So they like them to arrive full and leave full as well. So it's basically your whole carbon footprint and transport materials are trying to be more and more efficient. So there shouldn't be, from this site, the general increase in HGVs. I suspect across the highway network over the country, there may well be a general increase in HGVs in line with standard traffic growth forecasts that we're experiencing. But from this site, we're not expecting a big increase year on year with the HGVs.
Questions, Councillor Tempest Mitchell.
Apologies for this, because you may have already answered this question, but I'm looking at the difference in the HGV flows from a traffic assessment June 22 to the HGV flows technical note January 24, and it seems that more vehicles are now turning south than north. I don't think it would make any difference how long they are. Can you just explain the difference?
So the way that was calculated, there's a spreadsheet in the background which is uses the HGV flows that are existing on the network to kind of mirror the distribution of things that are already going on. So what has happened is that they were then factored by 2.3 to calculate that distribution. So those proportions that are going north and south. We've then unfactored that, and then it's ever so slightly amended those distributions. To be fair, that is probably a little bit of a clarification error that shouldn't have been in there in the first place. But in terms of the overall numbers, so it makes a difference of, I think it's like 1 HGV an hour or something like that in terms of overall numbers. So yeah, there is in terms of other people reading it, it's not very clear. I will admit that, but that's the reason why it's different.
The problem is, it seems to me that there's loads of little things like that they're just very easily dealt with. But as you've just said, it's unclear. And we've got to make a decision on clear data.
Yeah.
And clear evidence. And I don't think we have it.
You do in terms of the numbers that are in front of you. So the changes in those proportions won't materially change the conclusions of the assessment work, as has been demonstrated both by myself in terms of those traffic numbers that were submitted, and equally the consultation that's happened with the Highway Authority themselves as well, who have been through that data as much and have agreed with those conclusions. So the 505 HGVs that the site is generating across the day, and where they distribute 249 going north, etc., is all still there, all still stands.
Councillor Tempest Mitchell.
Within the application, is there any provision for off-site parking for vehicles that don't turn up at their allotted hour?
Not for off-site, no, but there is parking bays within the development itself. So appreciate you probably can't see it on the master plan, but there's loading bays within the units themselves. But then there is also HGV parking bays on site to accommodate HGVs that are either arrive early or aren't yet being used for loading and unloading. In line with highway standards, by the way, in terms of the HGV parking that's provided as part of the application.
Any other questions for us? Thank you very much. Yes. Invite the final speaker, Councillor Hartshorn, Ward Councillor. You've got 6 minutes, Sharon, when you're ready.
Yes, thank you, and good evening to everybody. The sheer fact that we're here 3 times for this application just shows the depth of the sensitivity to it and the importance of this application that's going through. I'm obviously here tonight to represent my residents and residents around the area. Again, just to go over the points that's already been said, the main issues that here is the size of the unit, the visits by HGVs through the villages. Those over District Council and Derbyshire District County Council haven't been included in this. They do have concerns about it, and I find it really difficult to understand why they haven't been included. Because half of my village, Plesley, is in Derbyshire County Council. It's really disappointing that that's not happened. So just to go through air pollution through that village, we're talking 500 HGVs per day. Per day. Not a month, a day. Going past those houses. And I know that those houses that have already been built there, they've been faced away from the road so that they're not going to be impacted that much with the pollution. However, that pollution that goes through that village still goes and dissipates through those channels straight in front of their front doors. All you've done is moved it from there and sent it down there in front of their front doors. It's not made that much of a difference to those people who live there. So, listening to what everybody said tonight, I'm not confident at all with what I've been hearing about this application. And I'm not confident because of the air pollution. I'm not confident because of the amount of HGVs that are going to go through that village. When the Mara was designed and built, it was designed in 2 phases. Phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1's been completed. They planned and designed phase 2 for a reason, because they knew they needed that to get bypassed Plesley. The only reason that wasn't put into place at that time is because of financial difficulties. That doesn't mean to say it's not needed. It means to say at that time there wasn't enough money to do it. It's still needed. They wouldn't have designed it and put it in place if it wasn't needed. The land then got sold off in 2022 to Mansfield Port Martin. So there's no way that that bypass could ever be re-erected in that way. I have asked for meetings with Notts County Council to look at a different route for a bypass. That's going to take a long time. Meanwhile, we're still putting up with 500 plus HGVs going past those homes every day. So in the school, as a person who is severely affected by a lung disease, okay, I know how desperate it is for people who are trying to cope going through that village. And it was already said that those monitors, those receptors, they weren't even placed in the village. They're placed at the top of the hill, which is not in the village. If you go through into the dip and through the village, that's when those figures come up to 31, 36, which is almost at 40. So that's why I find this is hard to take, because I feel like I'm being deceived. That's how I feel. That's how my residents feel. So, you know, moving on to those children who have to walk up that road every day, that has not been monitored by that pollution figures, by the way. They have to walk up that street every single day to school. And even the national figures show that 1 in 5 children, okay, you're looking at asthma in 1 in 5 children in this country. That equates to nearly 2 classrooms full of those children in that school in my ward. That's hard to swallow for me. I think this is going to have a real detrimental effect on that village. And I plead with you all, obviously, you know, you're going to make your decision on based on what evidence you've heard tonight, and that's absolutely fine, that's your right. But if you can take into account what we're saying to you, in reality, it's different to what's on paper. We can all put on paper what we want. We can all move figures around where we need to think they're going to fit. You know, in reality, that's not how it happens in real life. So, going through some of the things that have been said tonight. I've actually listened very carefully, and I thought there've been good points made since the last meeting. I went on the site visit, I was quite happy. Still, the Unit 1 is a concern to me. I don't think that a fence is going to...
30 seconds.
Don't think that a fence is going to mitigate any sound from that 24/7 development going on. And I'm absolutely sure it's not going to be protected from those huge floodlights and the light pollution to those residents that live close by. So, yeah, on my last point, in my last few seconds, we're not just talking about this development going through Pleasant, we're talking about the M1 every time it closes.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Do members have any questions of the officers? A few hands. Councillor Swinscoe.
It's just picking up on what Councillor Hartshorn said, because last time we came, we asked for air quality for a reassessment of that. And she's saying that this was done at the top of the hill, whereas at the bottom where it is a lot higher, that it wasn't done there. And that is really where the concern is. You know, anybody knows that at the bottom, that's where fumes, etc. will travel, particularly near lights where you've got idling traffic. Can you explain why it wasn't taken at that particular point?
Thank you, Chair. environmental health officers use their existing monitoring equipment. There's an in situ monitoring unit which has been in place for some considerable time. The results are taken from that. Their annual monitoring is, as you'll probably be aware, sets out the figures from that unit. That's considered an appropriate location. I don't think we can comment on why they chose that location as opposed to another location.
Yeah, I did actually speak to the environmental health officers today about this application just in general, and they are saying that it's a negligible impact in terms of air quality and in terms of noise. We're not obviously air quality experts or noise experts or highway experts, but we can only go on what our professional consultees tell us. And environmental health in this regard have looked at the evidence, looked at what's been put in, and raised no objection to the proposal.
Any further questions, officers? Councillor Tempest Mitchell.
Chair, the NPPF is a general policies statement. Certainly, from the layout of the site, I would expect everybody to be able to be accommodated within the site.
But are there new laws that provide that there should be provision for off-site parking for these types of developments?
Certainly, we've got the NPPF up in front of us at the moment. There's nothing in there. I'm not quite sure where. I'm not aware of any new laws regarding that. Are you perhaps referring to the county's highway design standards?
Yeah, but there's no requirement to do that in planning law.
Councillor Moxon.
Thank you. When we went on the site visit before Christmas, I think I raised concerns about the walkthrough from Abbott Road into the site, and people potentially parking on some of the side roads, the opposite side of Abbott Road. So places like, I'm just looking at it now, Berwick Avenue and Conway Close and areas like that. Has anything been done since then to alleviate that, or is there still going to be a walkthrough basically from there that would potentially allow that?
Chair, the walkthrough, I think, is the public right-of-way, the existing public right-of-way that you're referring to. That's a designated numbered right-of-way and would be expected to be retained within the site. In terms of the parking within the individual units, there is a substantial amount of private car parking accommodated within the site. In addition, the strategy in terms of active travel incentivises people to bus, to cycle, to walk, to work. Now, the significant amount of off-site improvement works in terms of providing the cycleway, improving the footway, and the free bus passes is certainly intended to encourage people not to drive to the site.
Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chair. It was mentioned that Derbyshire County Council had some concerns in regards to this. Did you receive anything from Derbyshire County Council in regards to concerns, and if so, is there a reason they weren't included in the report?
I think the reference is to Bolsover's response. That is included within the report.
Thank you, Chairman. I did request that we could get an highways officer to come from Notts County Council. And the reply was either no reply from them or they don't want to come. They've never come to any meeting, however contentious anything is, so we can have a question with them and how they come to the conclusions. We don't get that. But within the report, it does say within the report, 10 minutes to junction 28 and 10 minutes to junction 29. Well, I go there quite regular, both junctions, and I'd get anybody to go through 16 sets of traffic lights from there to junction 28 in 10 minutes. So I don't know where that was come up with that total cost. And by the way, when they go in there, they pass all their empty sheds at Castlewood in Sutton Ashfield, as big as these. So do you think that fact was correct in the report?
I'll let you answer that one, Martin.
Obviously, I've been specific myself, so obviously that's just a statement from the County Council on travel times. But yeah, that's just their statement, and I'm not going to dispute that or say it's wrong or right. It's their statement. I think we've got some commentary from the County Council in terms of the current application, why they're not coming to the to this meeting. Is that something we can? Sure.
Yeah, I mean that's contained within your update report. So there's a paragraph there which states we did actually ask Notts County Council to come, and they've declined that offer. And they the paragraph of what's in the update report is a summary of really what they said.
And just to be clear, that it's not that they're refusing to come just to Mansfield. They have a policy about going to any district council in the county on the basis of there's a number of authorities, and they don't feel that they should be servicing all committees, and they feel that the comments they've put forward are the correct comments.
That's just exactly right. I mean, I've spoken to the Highway Authority quite a few times over this application, and so has Karen. And basically, the response every single time is we're satisfied with the assessments that have been done, and we have no objections to it, and we have nothing further to add than what's in the comments.
Thank you, Chair. Would it be right in thinking that if you did get a response from one of the statutory consultees and there was something that looked a little bit fishy with it or looked incorrect from your point of view, accepting that you're not the experts in that field, would you then liaise back with them before it got to this point?
Yes, I mean, you don't have to, as planning officers, we don't have to take on board everything that the statutory consultee says. And if we see something that we don't agree with, or we need questioning, or we get an objection, for example, that needs we need some help with on a professional basis, then we would go back to them. But I think in this application, the Highway Authority have been fairly consistent, certainly over the last this is the third time it's come to committee. That that their position is quite clear. And therefore, as they're the professionals, I personally would have no reason to question any further.
Questions?
Thank you. Could I ask for a proposer and seconder for the Councillor Whitby?
Chair.
We have a seconder, Councillor Clegg. Committee's name, the Whiteboard. Any comments? Councillor Swinscoe.
Just need to say that I'm really disappointed that last time we asked for an air pollution report and the report was done at a place least likely to cause any significant harm. The place where there are concerns, it was ignored. And I know you've said that was done for a number of years, but that shouldn't be. Just because it's always done that way doesn't mean it should stay that way. So I just have to say that I'm really disappointed we didn't get a full report. Thank you.
Comments?
Chairman, I have concerns. I've listened to the debate and from the developers and their transport assessments and what have you. But as I see it, it looks like we're going to have instead of us expanding in Mansfield and getting a bit more meat on the bone, we're going to get some more sheds with low wages, because that's what they'll be, distribution centres with white van men delivering, because that looks like what that's going to be. And I just believe that, that there's got to be more to it than just this as well. I think nobody's mentioned this, but I can imagine getting rates free for quite a while. Nobody's mentioned that, whether they are or not. I know it's not a planning issue, but there could well be periods of rates free. That's why generally a lot of these sites start out with companies not paying any rates for 5 years and all this sort of thing. That's happened in other areas. So, you know, and what I can't understand is if they want a great big shed, there's a load up very close to the M1, you know, 5 minutes away that they could use. So, you know, I'm a bit disappointed that they've got to come to Mansfield and build a great big shed in the middle of a development of housing. There's going to be a lot of houses built along there, and we know where all the social houses are going to be, next to the big buildings. That's where they're going to be when they're built them. So I have very serious concerns, and particularly about the traffic. I mean, I live just off Abbott Road, Chairman, and I feel that there's going to be a lot more traffic going up and down there. The speed is going to be reduced to 30, although I don't think anybody's ever going to go 30 once this is on. And I just feel that we've just been bulldozed, want of better words, for the style that what we're looking at and what we're going at. I do ask the question of where we've come from, what we thought was technical buildings, a technical site, to a big distribution shed, and you know, that's where we've come from. That's what we're doing. I can understand the change in times, but it looks like it's going to be more online buying and more online delivering, and it's only going to be from the big sheds. So I'm a bit concerned about the way things are going, Chairman.
Councillor Whitby.
Thank you, Chair. And it's clear there's a lot of objection to this tonight, and I think Councillor Hartshorn did an absolute superb job in representing the residents. She's definitely a credit. Right, let's stop clapping. My own view on this application, however, it's already allocated in the local plan as for this type of use. It's previously been granted in 2012. And that will hold significant weight in this application. I've not heard any new material considerations. I've heard a lot of delving into the numbers that drive the conclusions that have been provided to us by the experts. We sit here as lay people and we have to believe the experts' opinions when they're put to us, and only when we can see something that's materially wrong with that can we challenge it. And I've not seen anything in that. I didn't sit on the previous committees with this. I missed the December one. I did sit in the public gallery at the last meeting though, and I don't think that we've moved on a great deal from that in terms of evidence not to support this application. And we've got to think about the National Policy Planning Framework, which tries to balance the economic benefit of a development with the impact on the environment. The experts have to use the National Planning Policy Framework to derive their conclusions. So what's not even fair to say that the experts have got this wrong or there's a conspiracy. It's not. They're using the government's own rules for this sort of thing. Last mile distribution is a huge growth sector in this country, and this falls right within there, and it's probably been accelerated by the pandemic, and that's why we've got this application here now. I disagree that it's always going to generate lots of low-paid jobs. I think warehousing in this country is going through a growth period in terms of skills, because the levels of automation required for this sort of thing are high. So that's going to potentially bring lots of higher skilled jobs, and there are lots of smaller units on there, and we've heard that there's going to be quite a few diverse businesses going into those, potentially going into those. Yeah, for me, I think the economic growth for Mansfield is really important. I think employment land in this particular area of Mansfield is massively important. There'll be loads of people on Ladybrook Estate that will benefit from employment in this area. I think the new inclusion of the local labour plan is a positive thing as well, and it should help the local economy grow. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor, any other comments? Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, I just want to echo really what Councillor Whitby said and put over very well. I think once again we sit with an application in front of us that, whilst we may not like it, we've had the reports back by the experts. The bases have been covered. I think we're sitting here again debating the same thing we debated in the last meeting. So yeah, again, I will support this application as well. As I say, I may not like it, but I think it's right in front of us. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Moxon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm really conflicted with this one because I totally see the need, as has been said, for new places of employment particularly in that area. I think the bit of the whole application that I can't sort of accept in my head really is the big unit. It's the sort of the what am I trying to say? The things that are conflicted in my head is all the opposition. Well, a large part of the opposition is to do with the number of vehicle movements, which is largely going to be from that unit, I would argue. Some of the arguments against the whole development are the size of that one unit and not of the other units, so the height of the unit. And the arguments about the low paid jobs are likely to be in that large unit as well. I'm not convinced of the need for that being there. I take on board what Councillor my brain's gone wrong today, but it was said earlier that it says in the paperwork 10 minutes to junction 28 and 10 minutes to junction 29. Well, we all know it isn't 10 minutes to junction 28 at all, and quite frankly, all of the majority of the movements, regardless of what it says in the paperwork, are going to go to junction 29 because it's easier. There's only like 2 sets of traffic lights in between that area and junction 29, and not the 20 sets of traffic lights that there are between that area and junction 28. And I've also still got concerns about, and it's not really been mentioned other than me saying it earlier and on the day that we went on the site visit, I've got some concerns about there being the walkway through there from Abbott Road, which is right opposite to some residential roads, which are prime for people parking on, because it'll be easier than trying to get in and out of that unit at 5 o'clock at night when all the places sort of you know, finish off at night at 5 o'clock, I would suspect. And because I've worked in places like it where you can be queuing for half an hour to try and get out of somewhere because every single unit all finishes at the same time. And I can foresee people thinking, well, it's a lot easier to park on those residential roads across from Abbott Road and just nip across the road and I'm there. So there's so many things that just don't add up to me with this one.
Thank you. Councillor Tempest Mitchell, you indicated.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few issues because there's obviously quite a lot going on. I don't think that the people who are objecting to it are objecting to the other 4 units. I think mainly it's the large one that probably is, as Councillor Watson says, is going to cause most of the HGVs going in and out of the 617. So sometimes I've been listening to, well, the past planning permission said this and the past planning permission said that. But it's a different animal from the past planning permissions. And time again, we sit in this room and we're told you can only deal with what's in front of you, which is that development as it is now with an 18-metre shed and 36 HGVs coming in every hour all night long, which I don't know about anybody else, but I don't think I'd buy a house next door to it. I sat on the junction of Chesterfield Road and the A617 today for an hour and I put my phone on and I videoed it and I tried to keep a track of how many vehicles went by, and there's too many to count, you can't count them all, but I counted around 100 HGVs. And then at 1 minute past 1, I went down and sat in the landmark and counted for 10 minutes, 18 HGVs, 10 going up and 8 going down in 10 minutes. So times that by 6, you can work that out. How many? It's again about 100 an hour. And that was in between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Sorry, 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock. So it just seems to me that the number of HGVs going up and down Plesley Hill is too many for the kids that live in those houses on that hill. I hear all the arguments about the financial benefits, both of the developers, the companies that are moving in, and anybody else will be making money from this going forward over the next 20, 30 years or 10, 20 years. But no one today has mentioned the kids that that live on that hill. No one, not one. I've been reading I'm trying to learn, I'm a bit thick, but I thought I'll try and learn some about the long-term impacts of air pollution, in particular particle matter, tyre waste, basically. And although there's not massive amounts of evidence that absolutely prove it, King's College London are in the middle of doing a big report and they basically say, but it's pretty obvious that particle matter and pollution is damaging people's health and people with coexisting morbidity. It's making them more ill in every way, shape or form, even down to mental health. And for me, the number of HGVs coming in and out of this development that we can't really quantify, because it's over a long period of time, we don't know what's going to happen long term. Already it's at least 100 an hour. I've witnessed it. For me, that's too many. The size of that unit just does not fit in, for me, into what will be a residential area. And I tried to make sure that I have this in front of me. It's what we were provided with the last time round. And it's got the size of the, it's got that, in effect, that picture there of all of the sheds. But amazingly, the houses that are going to be built on the field next door are not on it. Which is probably a shame because it would show just how massive it is compared with the houses that those kids will be living in. And for me, that's just too big. And I think a relevant reason for refusing this application simply doesn't fit where it's been put in the middle of a residential area at the moment within the countryside, for me. For those reasons and a few more, I'll be voting against it.
Any further comments? Low paid jobs been mentioned. I don't think the jobs in that unit are particularly going to be low paid. HGV drivers are very well paid. So I think that's a little bit of a red herring. Right, we've had the motion proposed and seconded, so I'm going to take it to the vote. It's a show of hands. All those in favour, please show now. All those against? Any abstentions? No. The vote was tied 4-4. Mr. Chairman, I've got a casting vote and I will vote in favour of the officer's recommendations to approve the application. So to conclude, planning application reference 2022-0412 full application submitted in accordance with the Town and Country Plan Environmental Impact Assessment Regulations 2017, erections of employment floor space, use class B2, B8, EG2, and EG3, and EG3 with ancillary office accommodation, new access road off the A617, provision of service yards, internal vehicle circulation and parking, service areas, perimeter fencing, associated drainage work, site levelling, landscaping, and realignment of existing public right-of-way, land adjacent to the A617 and the A6075 Abbott Road, Mansfield, has been granted planning permission. I'll just let the public leave the chamber before we continue the meeting.
Can we have a 5-minute comfort break, please?
I have a 5-minute comfort break. Yeah. Meeting for 5 minutes. Will you back? Thank you, Martin. On with the agenda, item 6. Plan application reference 2022-04-674, 2 retail units with self-contained apartments and communal car park to the rear of 7074 Ballinger Road. No vehicle access to the site and provision of 4 shared parking spaces to serve those shops. Amended scheme details, land adjacent to 7074 Ballinger Road. That's what. I'd like the officer to give a report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, if I can just point out that we have a slight revision to the plan numbers, amendment plan updated revision H, which includes a blue line around the flats car park, which was inadvertently omitted from the plan that's referenced on the plans list. In all other respects, the plans are exactly the same. The application site is a 0.69 hectare parcel of land comprising the side garden of 72 Ballinger Road, hot food takeaway premises with a flat over. To the front of this, and included within the site area, is an unenclosed grassed area which extends to the back edge of the pavement. Site is sloping upwards in a southerly and easterly direction. Adjacent to the site is the hot food takeaway and a separate retail premises. Between the 2 retail units, they have a flat each over. To the front of the site is a lay-by bus stop adjacent. The locality is residential with an area of public open space to the side. The proposal proposes a further 2 retail units with 2 one-bedroom self-contained flats over, accessed from a rear enclosed staircase. Parking for the flats is within the shared car park to the rear of the existing shops, and a new car park to the side of the premises for 4 vehicles for customers. The remainder of the site is retained as a grassed area, and I think the photographs will indicate that. Building is a 2-storey building under a pitched roof and has been amended to address objections in relation to the impact on adjoining properties to the rear in Breckbank. Building has been amended and redesigned to reduce the depth of the first floor, creating a single-storey flat roof element to the ground floor, which becomes the storage areas for the shops. A centrally placed lower height rear gable element provides the enclosed staircase for the flats. Bin stores and cycle parking is confirmed to be provided along with EV charging points. The building measures 11.2 metres in width with a depth of 7.9 for the pitched roof element and an overall depth of 11.69 and an overall height of 8.4 metres. Staircase projects just under 0.79 from the rear of the main building, has an overall height of 6.4 metres. Rear-facing first-floor windows in the flats are to the bedrooms and are proposed obscure glazed to prevent overlooking of rear gardens, as is the staircase to the staircase. The shops provide a small retail floor space of 38.536 square metres each, and the flats are 1-bedroom accommodation. The building is positioned to follow the building line of the existing shops and is set back 4.3 metres from the back edge of the Ballinger Road pavement. To the rear, the angle of the building footprint results in the closest point of the building, the staircase element, being just over 2.5 metres from the boundary with 15 Breckbank and 3.4 metres from the rear boundary with number 11. The building is proposed set down into the site, which will reduce its height visually when viewed from the properties to the rear. The site is located in a sustainable location close to residential properties, and the size of the shop units is such that it will provide premises for smaller scale retailers, while the flats provide entry-level accommodation for single people or a couple. Local objectors have raised objections on the grounds of overdevelopment, potential impact on their properties in relation to loss of views and potential overlooking, and highway impacts due to increased customers coming to the site. The location of the site, size and scale of the development does not raise local plan policy issues, and development is sufficiently limited in terms of site coverage to enable the development to be undertaken and the grassed area to the frontage to be largely retained. Back-to-back distances to the houses to the rear is considered acceptable, ranging between 21 to 23 metres, that's building to building. The proposed obscure glazing precludes overlooking. Condition is recommended to preclude use of the flat roof over the retail units as balconies. The proposed building would have some limited impact in terms of overshadowing rear gardens behind the building, is to the west of the gardens, and therefore any limited overshadowing would be in the evenings. No hot food takeaway facility is proposed, a concern of local neighbours, and screen fencing to the rear of the customer car park would preclude car lights from shining into residents' gardens. Nottinghamshire Highways have not raised an objection to the proposal and consider the car park is adequate for the size of retail units proposed. Shared car park behind the existing shops, which also serve the existing flats, is assessed as of a size which can accommodate 2 additional car parking spaces. And although concern has been raised about delivery vehicles using the existing car parking area, it's considered that in practice they will be parking to the front of the premises using the lay-by. In respect of biodiversity, the local plan policy NE2 and concerns raised by objectors, the site is not subject to biodiversity net gain requirements currently. The small-scale nature of the site and the retention of an area of the grassed area to the side, provision of bird nesting boxes will provide some ecological enhancement. Protection for a single tree on the boundary close to the proposed car park is addressed via conditions. Subject to the recommended conditions in the report, the application is recommended for approval.
Thank you. Because I'm speaking the applicant, Nick Bradley, would you like to come to the podium, please? If you would like to address the committee, you've got 4 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. I'm not going to last forever more, keep repeating myself. Basically, all I'm here is to support the application, which is recommended by the planning officer and my architect. I very much strongly believe it would bring more opportunities to other people to make themselves self-employed, and it will provide more accommodation for people as we're short of housing. And it will also benefit the local authority where the inland revenue will provide more income to the local authorities. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Speaker. Indicated. Thank you. Anyone have any questions of the witnesses? Anyone's indicated. Do I have a proposal and a second for the application? Councillor Whitby, Councillor Stevenson. Any comments? Indicating speak. Move to the vote then. All those in favour of the application, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that's unanimous. As the plan application reference 2022-4674, 2 retail units with self-contained apartments and communal car parking to the rear of 7074 Village Road, no vehicle access to the side and provision of full shared parking spaces to serve the proposed shops and limited scheme retails, and land adjacent to 7074 Ballinger Road, Mansfield, has been granted planning permission. Thank you. Moving to item 7, which is planning application reference 2023-0646 for the erection of a paddle court and clubhouse, Mansfield Town Football Club, Quarry Mansfield. Ask the officer to make a report.
Thank you, Chairman. Prior to the commencement of the presentation, a further condition is recommended for the applicant to submit a car parking and management plan prior to the commencement of development. This is a full application for the erection of 4 paddle courts and associated clubhouse, along with the proposed clubhouse, which will be sited to the southwest of the courts, adjacent to the entrance to the complex. There have been no statutory objections to the proposals and no public comments have been received. A letter of support has been received from Ben Bradley MP. In terms of the principle of development, it is considered that the proposal is consistent with the adopted development plan. In terms of the visual appearance, the design and materials of the proposed building is in keeping with the character and appearance of the wider site of the football club, and the presence of a wide bank of mature trees to both the southern and western boundary, adjacent to the residential properties beyond, will be protected and retained. It is considered that further soft landscaping and some more aesthetically pleasing hard landscaping could be incorporated within the scheme for the benefit of visual amenity of all users, and a condition is recommended in this regard. In terms of residential amenity, the proposed use would operate between the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday to Sunday, including bank holidays. These are considered appropriate hours for such a use. The distance between the application site and the neighbouring residential properties is approximately 30 metres, and given the established trees are to be retained and the fact that the proposed use is undercover, it is considered to be sufficient to prevent any significant loss of residential amenity through noise and disturbance. In terms of light pollution, a condition is recommended to control any external lighting. In terms of highway considerations, the Highway Authority has confirmed that they have no objections to the proposal, including the parking provision. Covered, lit and secure cycle parking spaces will be provided, and the users of the facility will be able to access electrical charging spaces. A bus stop contribution has been requested from Notts County Council, and this would need to be controlled via a Section 106 agreement. Ecology has been assessed by the application due to the proximity of the nature reserve sites, nature conservation sites, and it is confirmed that 10% biodiversity net gain will be achieved. The impact on ecology is considered to be acceptable subject to conditions. And finally, in terms of flood risk, the Environment Agency and Local Lead Flood Authority have not made any specific comments on the proposal on the account of the site being located in Flood Zone 1 and the submitted flood risk assessment addressing issues regarding mains connection. In conclusion, the site is located within a sustainable location of the Mansfield urban area, which is also designated for regeneration. The proposal will provide a widely accessible sporting facility on a wider sports and leisure site with adequate safe access and sufficient parking. The proposal would also provide a number of employment opportunities. It is consistent with the adopted development plan policies, and accordingly the officer recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to a Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, have any questions of the officers? This one's good.
It's just about parking. I know on match days when Mansfield Town play, particularly at home, obviously at home, the lot of streets right the way up to Hillsway Crescent, up to Nottingham Road, people are parking there. Will this place be used at the same time as his match days, so increasing parking on the highways?
It won't be. It's proposed to be used. There's not any provision for it not to be used on match days. But like I say, we need to have a car parking and management plan. So I suspect it will be covered in that. But the Highway Authority are satisfied that there's enough car parking on the site.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Proposal. I think with this, Councillor Knox and Councillor Swanscombe. The proposal will be for the officer's recommendation and the additional condition regarding submitting a car parking management plan. Is that clear? Yeah. Any comments? No. Move for the vote, please show of hands, all those in favour. Any against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Thank you. On application reference 2023-0646 for the erection of paddle courts and clubhouse, Mansfield Town Football Club, Pine Lane, Mansfield, has been granted planning permission. To item 8, the Appendices of Human Rights Act and use classes appendices 1 and 2, pages 1 to 2. Can you have a show of hands that you've read these and accept them? It's unanimous, thank you. And the planning appeals decisions, 1st of January 2024, 28th of January 2024, pages 1 and 3 to 1 and 4. With the noting, can you show of hands for those, please? Yeah, that's unanimous, thank you. And I think that brings us to the end of the agenda, so thank you very much for your participation tonight. And it was a good meeting, thank you. Safe journey home.